Princess Alara Voss stood at the tall window of her chamber, watching the last light fade over the spires of Ashford Castle. Tomorrow she would leave everything she had ever known. Not as a princess going to war, and not as a bride sent off to seal some distant treaty. She would leave as a hostage of peace, a human sent to live among the shapeshifter packs of the northern wilds, so that the fragile truce between her kingdom and theirs would not collapse. She had volunteered for this. Her father, King Alden, had been stunned when she offered herself instead of her younger sister. Her advisors had called it reckless. But Alara had her own reasons, ones she told no one. She was tired of being paraded before foreign lords as a prize to be won. She was tired of a life measured only by her usefulness to the crown. If she had to be given away for the sake of peace, she would rather give herself away on her own terms. She left the palace before dawn, wearing simple traveling clothes instead of royal silk. She told the border guards her name was Lyra, a minor noble's daughter sent north as part of the truce arrangement. Only a handful of people knew the truth. She meant to keep it that way. The journey to the northern wilds took 11 days. By the time she arrived, her hands were blistered from the rains, and her fine manners had worn down to something more practical. She was led through a gate of ancient stone, into a settlement built into the hills, where wooden halls stood among the trees, and the air smelled of wood smoke and pine. That was where she first saw him. Chaol Draven, the alpha king of the northern packs, stood at the center of the gathering hall, tall and quiet, with the kind of stillness that made a room fall silent around him. He had pale gray eyes that seemed to measure everything they looked at. When Alara was brought before him, introduced as Lyra, daughter of a minor Ashford house, he studied her for a long moment before speaking. "You do not look like someone who was sent here against her will," he said. "I was not sent," she answered. "I came." Something flickered behind his eyes, curiosity perhaps, though his expression did not change. He nodded once and turned away, leaving her in the care of an older woman named Brenna, who showed her to a small wooden house near the edge of the settlement. The first weeks were hard. Alara had never cooked her own meals or mended her own clothes. She had never had to earn anyone's respect. It had simply been given to her because of her birth. Among the packs, no one cared who her family was. She had to prove herself through her actions, and slowly, she did. She helped translate documents between the two peoples. She untangled a dispute over grazing land that had nearly turned violent. She spoke plainly and thought carefully, and word of her usefulness reached Chaol before she ever expected it to. He began to seek her out, first to ask questions about Ashford's laws and customs, later simply to talk. He was not what she had expected from a man raised to lead warriors. He listened more than he spoke. He asked her opinion and seemed to actually want to hear it. In the human court, men listened to her only long enough to find a flattering response. Chaol argued with her, disagreed with her, and respected her enough to change his mind when she was right. "You think too much like a diplomat for a minor noble's daughter," he told her one evening, as they walked along the ridge above the settlement. "Is that an insult?" she asked. "No," he said. "It is a question." She laughed it off, but the question stayed with her long after he had gone. She knew she could not keep her secret forever, not with a man who studied people the way Chaol did, but she was not ready to lose what she had found here. Not yet. For the first time in her life, she was known for what she did and what she thought, not for the crown that had never really felt like her own. Months passed. The wary distance between them became something else entirely. It happened slowly, in small moments, rather than one great turn. It was in the way he made sure she had a warm cloak before winter came. It was in the way she stayed by his side during a difficult council meeting, quietly passing him notes that helped him counter the arguments of his own skeptical elders. It was in the long walks and the longer silences that never felt uncomfortable. She began to care for him in a way she had never expected to care for anyone, and though neither of them spoke the word love aloud, it lived in the space between their conversations, in the way his eyes softened when she entered a room, in the way her heart quickened at the sound of his voice. But peace, as always, was fragile. Rumors began reaching the northern wilds that House Ashford was preparing to break the truce. Chaol's scouts reported movement along the border, wagons of weapons, soldiers gathering under the cover of trade caravans. The pack elders grew restless, calling for Cale to strike first before Ashford could betray them. Cale refused, insisting he needed proof before he would risk another war. But the pressure on him grew heavier by the day. Elara felt sick with dread. She still had contacts within the Ashford court, people loyal to her rather than to the crown, and through careful, quiet letters, she learned the truth. Her own father, pressured by generals eager for northern land, was preparing to move against the Pax within the month. The truce she had given up her freedom to protect was about to be shattered by her own family. She could not stay silent. She wrote a warning, unsigned, and had it delivered through a messenger who did not know her true identity, only that she was someone deeply trusted within the settlement. The message reached Cale's council in time. Defensive positions were reinforced. A surprise attack that might have devastated the Pax instead met a prepared and ready force, and the coming battle was avoided, at least for the moment. But warnings like that do not appear from nowhere, and Cale's advisors, sharp and suspicious after years of conflict, began asking questions. Someone within the Pax had access to Ashford's most private council decisions. Someone was passing information. A hunt began for a spy, and though no one suspected Lyra, the quiet noble's daughter who kept to herself and worked twice as hard as anyone to be useful, Elara knew the truth would not stay buried much longer. She made her decision before anyone could make it for her. She wrote to her father, formally and finally, renouncing her place in the line of succession. She would not be used as a piece on anyone's board again, not by Ashford, not by anyone. The letter was brief and final. She signed it with her true name for the first time in nearly a year, and something in her chest eased as she sealed it, as if she had finally set down a weight she had carried her whole life without realizing how heavy it was. She did not tell Cale what she had done, not yet. She told herself she was waiting for the right moment, though some quiet part of her feared there might never be a right moment for a truth this large. The right moment, or the wrong one, chose itself. An Ashford envoy arrived at the settlement 2 weeks later, sent to negotiate the terms of an uneasy peace after the failed attack. Elara was in the hall when he entered, standing near Cale as she often did during important meetings, offering quiet counsel when it was needed. The envoy's eyes found her immediately, and his face went pale with recognition. "Princess Elara," he said, his voice carrying through the silent hall, "we feared you had been lost. Your father will be relieved to know you are alive." The room went utterly still. Every pack elder, every warrior, every set of eyes turned toward her. Cale did not move, but she felt him go rigid beside her, felt the moment the ground shifted beneath everything they had built. "Princess," one of the elders repeated, the word sharp as a blade, "you are Ashford's own daughter." The accusations came fast after that. She was the spy, they said. She had come among them under a false name to gather secrets for her father's crown. The warning that had saved them from ambush was not loyalty, they argued, but a trick, a way to earn trust before some greater betrayal. Voices rose, calling for punishment, calling her a traitor to the peace she claimed to protect. Elara did not run, and did not deny who she was. She stood in the center of the hall, her chin lifted, and told them everything, her true name, her reasons for coming, the warning she had sent at the risk of her own family's fury, and the letter she had already written renouncing her crown before any of this had come to light. She had not done it to be discovered. She had done it because she meant it. "I gave up my place in that court," she said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled at her sides. "Not because I was caught, because I chose this place, and these people, before any of you knew who I was." The hall was silent when she finished speaking. All eyes turned to Cale, waiting for judgment, waiting for him to uphold the law that demanded a spy be punished, no matter what she had done for them. Cale looked at her for a long, unbearable moment. Then he turned to face his own counsel. "She warned us before any of you knew there was a threat," he said, his voice carrying easily across the hall. "She gave up a crown that most of you would have killed for, and she did it without asking anything in return. If loyalty is measured only by birth, then none of you understand what loyalty means at all." He crossed the room and stood beside her, in front of everyone, in a gesture that needed no further words. It was a declaration as clear as any crown could offer. Slowly, the tension in the hall began to ease. The elders who had called for punishment fell quiet, some ashamed, some simply unwilling to argue further against their king's plain conviction. The threat of war did not vanish overnight, but its shape began to change. With Ilara's knowledge of Ashford's true intentions and Chaol's authority over the Pax, they worked together to build something stronger than the truce that had first brought her north, a real alliance, forged not from fear or obligation, but from trust earned through honesty, however painfully it had come. In the months that followed, Ilara's father, faced with a united front he had not expected, and a daughter who would not be moved, agreed to terms that finally brought lasting peace between the two peoples. Ilara did not return to Ashford Castle. She had already given up that crown, and she did not want it back. She stayed in the northern wilds, standing beside Chaol, not as a hidden princess in exile, but as herself, fully known for the first time in her life. The people who had once called her Lyra, and then called her Spy, came in time to call her something else entirely. The woman who had chosen them, again and again, long before she ever had to. On a quiet evening, as the sun set gold over the hills, Chaol took her hand and asked if she had any regrets about the crown she had left behind. Ilara looked out at the settlement below, at the people who now called this place home, just as she did, and shook her head. "I never lost anything," she said. "I only finally became who I was supposed to be." And for the first time since she had arrived, wearing a false name and carrying a secret too heavy to hold alone, she felt entirely, completely free.